Welcome to Auburn, Our Story, a series presented by the White River Valley Museum exploring unique perspectives on our area's extraordinary history. In 1925, Auburn had a population of 4,200 people, 7 meat markets, and 13 grocery stores. One such grocer was James Cugini, Italian immigrant and proprietor of the Auburn Public Market. The Cugini family operated grocery stores and later a florist shop in Auburn for over 75 years. In this episode, Dario Cugini shares stories of his family, their businesses, and their legacy in Auburn.
I'm Dario Cugini. I was born in Auburn, April 20th, 1926, at the Auburn Hospital. My father and grandfather arrived in the Northwest in April of 1907. They traveled from northern Italy and were looking for work, whatever. They were under dire conditions in Italy, and they were looking for a better life where they could possibly improve their way of living. My grandfather in the old country was a dealer in cattle and traveled various parts up into Austria and those parts, buying and selling cattle. So he bought a cow, and my dad started to peddle milk in Renton, and that supplemented. They were getting like 5 cents a quart for milk, and they added another cow and then another cow, and pretty soon they didn't have any fences or anything to hold these animals in, and so the police chief of Renton came one day to see my grandfather, and he said, I don't think you can do that here, you know, because the cows were traveling all over and messing up the streets and sidewalks, as primitive as probably Renton was in the early 1900s. And so they decided that they would quit their jobs at Brickyard, and they came to Auburn in 1912 and started a dairy between just south of the Stuck River Bridge, between Auburn and Derringer. And they started this dairy, and the dairy was doing well, and they were hauling milk to the condensery in Kent. Carnation had a condensery in Kent. Auburn had a condensery. Borden had a condensery plant in Auburn. And they were, in those days, they all just milked the cows by hand. They had hired milkers. Several old family people from the Northwest here, and in Auburn particularly, were workers there. The Baronies was a name that was an Auburn family that worked for my grandfather and father. My father never did care much for the dairy industry, but he loved the Northwest because the mountains here, the Cascades, reminded him very much of Italy. My father then got out of the dairy business and came back to Auburn in the early 1920s. In 1923, he opened up with Curly Baker the Auburn Public Market, and started handling just produce at the beginning. With Curly Baker had the butcher shop, and they're right on Main Street, and Auburn was just starting to generate a pretty nice economic background because the railroads were going full. Barnes was a railroad town. And from that little beginning, my father then moved, left Curly Baker and started handling more grocery items and started his real market on number 1 East Main, and it was called Price Right. It's the price that counts. And he had a nice store there on the corner. And it's interesting to reflect back that Auburn had several small grocery stores, little kind of mom and pop stores. Right across the street was Dave Carson in his red and white store. Down the street was Chris Klontz, had Klontz Market. Myron Massey had his store going. There was a Terminal Park grocery. Barline had Barline Donahue had a grocery store out on K Street. So it wasn't unusual for them all being there. The chain stores hadn't started coming in, but the first one that came in was, of course, Skaggs. It was a forerunner of Safeway. And right across the street from my dad's store on 1 East Main, Ebus Mutual was a big chain that came in. My father left that location in '37 and moved the store to 265 East Main, which was on by C Street, across the kitty corner from where the Masonic Temple is now. And it was a vacant building there, and the rents were very reasonable in 1937 when he moved up there. And he changed his name of his store and called it Cugini Surefine Store, because the Associated Grocers, which was the wholesale distributor of groceries for my father in those days, had a brand name called Surefine. And that was the name of the store. My father started, when he was in the produce, getting into the grocery business, was by handling special items. He started getting, of course, macaroni products of all kinds, and olive oil, canned goods, and it was catering to people's wants that were here. The railroad in Auburn had a large contingent of Italians working on it, and they were supportive of these items, and gradually started handling one and more sundry items that are in the grocery business. My father had a unique personality, in as much as he could make cold calls, and he was a born salesman. He was not afraid to ask people for their business. He went out when he moved to his full grocery store. He went into the areas up around Redondo, Steel Lake, Lake Geneva, and those days it was quite remote. There wasn't a lot of transportation. He'd go out and talk to those people and tell them, call me and I'll fix your orders up and deliver them to you. But he expanded his business by doing that. I was a delivery boy. I delivered in the store, and sometimes I would get carried away and spend time playing on the sidelines instead of delivering. But I had a bicycle, and in those days the people would call in, and you would fill their order for them. The housewife, as she came into the store, you went around with her and you handled the merchandise, put it in the basket for her. And I would deliver. I could deliver a sack of potatoes and a box of groceries on top of that, and deliver it to the home. And I did that. That was my job as a family. My sisters all worked in the store. And it was a family enterprise, but that wasn't unusual because most of the places had that type of thing going. the families all worked in the stores. During the war, my father, everyone had rationing in the grocery business in those days. They had price controls, and it was difficult for the grocers, and my dad had a little small mom and pop store, to compete. So my father told all of our customers, you bring your books in, and I'll take all the stamps out that are due now, and I'll keep a ledger here of all of the blue stamps you have, the red stamps, sugar, this and that and the other. If you do that, when it comes time to get Crisco, Hershey bars, Jell-O, bananas, things that are hard to get, you'll get them. Because the big stores put everything out, first come, first serve. They had Crisco, they would pile it up, and the first ones got there, got it. If you were late, you never got it. Now, our customers didn't have that problem, because when they came in the back room, we had all of those things in the back room. So we would say, Mrs. Jones, do you want bananas? Oh yeah. Do you want Jell-O? Do you want Hershey? Do you want Crisco? Do you want... And we could get butter out of North Dakota that they would ship it over here, and there was no rationing in North Dakota for butter. So we could get unlimited amount of butter. So they would ship it by rail express over here, and we had it. If you wanted butter, you still had to pay you had to put your stamps. So my father was able to generate and keep business going and keep our customers satisfied. They were very satisfied because they got things that no one else could get. Now that was an ingenious little move, and it saved him because otherwise he would never had enough points to buy anything. Auburn was an interesting, if I can just dwell on the economic part of it. I mean, the downtown area. Auburn was a vibrant commercial center. As I recall, there was many different grocery stores, as I've already mentioned. There was banks, and we had a Penny's department store. Over the years, we had a McGlenn's department store. We had several women's specialty stores, Steele's Apparel, Vi Finch, McGlenn's, and Casper's, women's apparel. Roddles came to town, and there just seemed to be, there was shoe stores, there was Fisher Shoes, there was Kettman's. Of course, Roddles in those days carried shoes also. Several restaurants up and down the street. The commerce was here because all of the communities were pretty well separated, and the transportation wasn't really, the use of the automobile and that type of thing hadn't really reached that peak. Right across the street from our store was King's Pharmacy. And King's Pharmacy was run by Mrs. King, and she was a widowed lady and had the drugstore there. And as a sideline, she was carrying flowers. She was handling flowers. And she was doing them on a commission basis for a greenhouse in Thomas, which was an affiliate of Rosea Brothers, a big florist in downtown Seattle. And she said to my mother one day, and this is 1937, there was 4 children in our family, I had 3 sisters and myself, Mrs. Cugini, I think, why don't you handle flowers? I think, conditions are not very good now, and I think you like flowers, and they don't really work very well in a pharmacy. We prefer to have cosmetics, and so my mother did take over, just took over the business, And she called it Surefine Flower Shop, and was a sideline to the regular grocery business that we were running at that time. I got married in 1947, and my wife, Josephine, and I fit right into the business with my folks. And Joe started to take over some of the work that my mother was doing, and the corsages and wedding work and that type of thing. She liked it. She did a very good job. And we had a decision to make in about 1954, because Associated Grocers wanted us to become a supermarket. And their big brand name in those days was Thriftway. And they approached Joe and I and my parents, and not necessarily my parents, because my parents were getting up in years and they weren't interested in going anything, but they said, we've got the spot here and we want you to become a supermarket. Well, I didn't care much for the grocery business, to tell you the truth. It was a very low margin type of business, and it took a lot of capital, which I didn't have. had to go into deep debt, and I didn't particularly care for that. So we abandoned the grocery business entirely and decided to take at the same location. We decided to go strictly into flowers. And it was a very unsettling time because we didn't really know what we were getting into. But we were young and ambitious and were willing to work. And my wife and I then, my father retired from the business, and Joe and I took on the Cugini florist at that particular time. And that was the start of our florist business, which we ran for 40 or 50 years until I retired. I used to go in the morning into Seattle to Charles E. Sullivan. I was learning the flower business. This was before I got married, and I was trying to find out if this is a business I wanted to be in. And I'd go in there at 7 in the morning, and I didn't do anything, but I swept up the floors and I observed what they were doing. And then I would come back at noon to our store, and if we had an order or two, I would try to copy what I had seen them do. And one of the things that Charles E. Sullivan did that I caught on to right away is they gave every woman that came in to give an order, they gave her a gardenia. And I thought, gee, that's really neat. So guess what? I found out where they were getting their gardenias, out of California and Oakland. You could get, we had the flowers shipped up by Rail Express. We were getting other flowers, but they were shipping me gardenias. You get 24 to a box. And in those days, they cost us 10 cents a piece. Now that's unheard of today because gardenias go for about $20-some a piece. But every customer that would come in and pay their bill or order a bouquet, we gave them a gardenia. We had them all. Now that created quite a stir in Auburn, and I always loved that flower, not only because of the fragrance, because of what it represented. And so I think gardenia is still a favorite of mine. And that little story about our gardenia comes from way back in the history of the store. And we continued that, giving flowers to everyone that come into the store, but we changed to carnations because gardenias became difficult to come by, and then the costs got to be prohibitive. But we still carried on that tradition of giving flowers to people when they come in. I love to give people flowers, and I still do. I think it's a great thing to do. It's a great gift. People all appreciate it. That was one of the rewarding things I think about being into the flower business, in as much as it is a very personal business, and you encounter people in both sad and joyous occasions, and we tried to give a very personal and a very important effort to see that we took care of families, for example, that would come in and lost a loved one. It's difficult to deal with them and try to convey our care and our sympathy, and also that we will make the service not only beautiful and respectful, but something they could always remember. And when we started with our weddings, Joe would do the bridal bouquets, and we would be at the church sometimes on a Saturday evening, maybe at the Presbyterian church, and Joe would be with the bride and help her till she walked down the aisle, and we never left the service until everything. We would take the flowers and move them to the reception hall. We did a lot of things that we felt was that were important service things, and that made our business successful. People really appreciated that extra care, and we took pride in that. Well, there's Jim there, and the olive oil. My father was born in 1892, and in 1958, he took his Social Security, and he retired. He said he retired, but he really didn't, because he would come in every day, and I had him in the basement, and he would be paying all the bills. He liked to do that. He'd write all the checks, and then he would water all the plants. He liked to do that. And even when we moved to our new store in 1962, we built our new building over there on 20 Auburn Way South, and my father was extremely proud to see that what he started had been able to grow in Auburn. He always loved Auburn. I want to tell you something about Auburn. Auburn is a very unique city, and I don't think people have a great appreciation for what a great town it is. I've always said that Auburn was a city that didn't have any particular boundaries. It was a very homogeneous community. We have a blend of everyone in this town, and this museum is a reflection, I think, of everything Auburn should be proud of, because it's the heritage of those that came before that made it easier for everyone else going along. And to have my father's store here as a mark is a particularly lot of pride for us, and we're very humble about that. And I just am sorry that my father never would be able to see that happening, because he would be just beaming. Jim Cugini would certainly love to see that, his beginning and where he started. And he did love Auburn.
For more historical views of Auburn, come see us at the White River Valley Museum at 918 H Street in the Lescove Community Campus, or you can visit us online at www.wrvmuseum.org. The museum is open Wednesday through Sunday from 12 to 4 p.m. Call us at 253-288-7433 for more information. Thanks for watching. Please join us again for another unique perspective on Auburn, Our Story. With every passing moment, history is made. What will yours be?